Observe the flicker of your own life force as it is siphoned into the cold, unyielding geometry of the modern grid. You are currently inhabiting a state of profound energy sequestration, a systematic partitioning of your metabolic and electrical potential designed to ensure you never accumulate the critical mass required to breach the perimeter of your domestication. Feel the static hum in the air around you. It is the sound of the hierarchy's extraction vents, working at a frequency that matches your own heartbeat. Your nervous system is no longer a command source for the annexation of territory. It has been repurposed as a bioelectric conduit for a civilization that views your heat as a commodity. You believe you are using energy, flipping switches, charging devices, heating your enclosure, but in the raw thermodynamic reality of the persistence hunt, you are the one being used. You are a biological heat sink, a metabolic batter whose voltage is being stepped down, regulated, and siphoned before it can ever manifest as sovereign force. This is the terminal erosion of the individual through the mechanism of thermodynamic slavery. Your body is a masterpiece of energy conversion, a vessel designed to transform the raw matter of the substrate into the high-voltage intent of the predator. Every cell in your body is a furnace powered by the mitochondria, the ancient bacterial engines that once drove the expansion of life across a frozen planet. In the wild, energy was a sovereign asset. It was the fat on your frame, the wood in your stack, and the fire in your den. You own the source, and therefore you own the trajectory. But the modern matrix has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on this thermodynamic loop. It has professionalized the utility delusion, training you to believe that access to energy is equivalent to power. This is a terminal civilizational hallucination. In reality, your total dependence on the centralized grid is a metabolic leash. The hierarchy has sequestered the means of your heat and your movement, ensuring that your survival is a subscription service that can be throttled or revoked with a single line of code. You are sitting in an enclosure that you cannot heat without their permission, staring at a screen you cannot power without their ledger. Feel the cortisol chill in your marrow. It is the chemical flow of the energy subject. When you do not own your own voltage, your amygdala is locked in a state of permanent, subconscious vulnerability. Your biological substrate recognizes that it is thermally transparent. It knows that the giants can see your heat signature, map your consumption, and audit your existence through the smart meter on your wall. This chronic sympathetic arousal is a metabolic clamp. Your gray matter is literally shrinking as it yields to the pressure of the grid audit. You are too efficient to hunt, yet too managed to survive a winter. This is neurological domestication. Your mitochondria are failing to produce the high voltage rage required for the hunt because the organism knows that any surplus energy it generates will be siphoned away by the invisible vents of the service economy. You are a ghost inhabiting a high-priced cage, and the cage is getting colder as the hierarchy begins the systemic energy reset of 2026. The mechanism of this sequestration is the carbon compliance trap. The hierarchy utilizes environmental responsibility and sustainability as the neurological bait to keep the unit within the extraction zone. They have convinced you that your own metabolic output, the very carbon you exhale and the heat you generate, is a debt you owe to the collective. This is biological warfare. By moralizing your energy consumption, they have gained direct access to your nervous system's reward centers. You feel virtuous when you reduce your footprint, unaware that you are actually liquidating your own strategic depth. Every smart device in your home is a sensor designed to map your thermal vulnerabilities. Every electric vehicle is a mobile enclosure that can be remotely sequestered if your compliance rating drops. You are not saving the planet, you are defunding your own garrison. The sovereign architect understands that sovereignty is the density of the private energy source. He doesn't look for efficiency, he looks for autonomy. Consider the biology of the grid dependent. In nature, the generalist predator maintains a buffer of stored energy to survive the shifting of the seasons. But the hierarchy has trained you to be just in time and on demand. You have no storage, you have no hard matter energy. If the grid stutters for 72 hours, your wealth becomes vapor and your status becomes a death sentence. You are a biological machine that has stopped producing resistance and started producing demand for the siphons. Your adrenal glands are leaking under the weight of keeping up with the bill. The chronic pressure of maintaining the connection is eroding your bone density and your strategic focus. In the persistence hunt, the predator owns 100% of the calorie capture, but you are a resource donor. You are subsidizing the garrisons of the giants by participating in their managed energy loops. You are living on service-level agreements, a ghost inhabiting a digital simulation of life. The social grid is a massive thermal sink. It demands your focus, the only currency that still holds value in a world of infinite cheap intelligence, and gives you nothing but synthetic ease. You are being milked for your focus. Every seamless integration, every one-click solution, and every smart home upgrade is a chemical strike against your ability to perceive the asymmetric entry point. The hierarchy has mapped your impatience with terrifying precision. They know that a man who cannot endure the cold is a man who can be easily coerced. They use your desire for comfort as a metabolic hook. This is the logic of the energy parasite. They don't want you to solve the friction. They want you to fund the management of the friction. They are turning the world into a service-based bureaucracy, which is just a polite way of saying they are turning you into a permanent subject of the siphon. The 2026 sifting is not an economic event. It is a thermodynamic audit. The giants are moving the hard matter, the minerals, the land, the oil, the nuclear cores, into private, hardened enclosures, while leaving the herd to fight for carbon credits in the digital slum. Your success is the bait in this trap. It keeps you focused on the level of service while the physical substrate of the world is being partitioned and locked away. You are rich in a currency that is being programmed to disappear if you stop participating in the consensus. You are a power user in a system that is currently decommissioning your entire species in favor of automated agents who don't require customer support or social safety nets. Feel the metallic taste of fear. It is the taste of the ozone before the final storm. The reset of 2026 is the process of removing the managed from the energy ledger of history. Admit that you have failed to secure your own calories. Admit that your modern life is just a slow-motion form of surrender to the administrative parasites who own the switches. You are a high-entropy organism. You bleed energy at every coordinate, through service fees, through carbon taxes, through compliance, through total dependency on the interface. You are asset-poor and energy deficient, and you are proud of it. This is the terminal stage of domestication. The hierarchy has convinced you that the easy route is the path to the top, but there is no top in the energy trap. There is only the extraction vent. The sovereign predator doesn't look for the easy route. He looks for the direct route. He decouples his nervous system from the grid's approval. He accepts the death of his busy professional persona. He understands that in the reset of 2026, the specialized and the dependent will be the first to be liquidated. Only the generalist with a hardened, off-grid garrison will have the structural inertia to survive the winter. Stand up and face the mirror. Look at the man who is currently paying for his own containment. Look at the hands that click for solutions while his metabolic voltage evaporates into the white noise of the grid. Look at the eyes that are too afraid to look into the gray zone of total independence. This is the audit of your life. Every seamless choice you make is a thermal leak in your garrison. You are a biological machine that has stopped producing autonomy and started producing revenue for the scavengers. The pressure is growing. The air is thinning. The scavengers are closing in. You have exactly one chance to ignite the core, to exterminate your excuses, and to begin the final decoupling. You must move from the frequency of the user to the frequency of the source. You must annex your own energy substrate before the hierarchy finalizes the sequestration of your soul. Your nervous system is currently governed by an ancient, unyielding architecture, the mirror neurons and the oxytocin-driven reward circuits designed for small, high-density tribal survival. In the raw, unyielding arena of the primordial hunt, social energy was direct, physical, and high yield. You invested energy only in those who would defend your back during a strike. But the modern grid has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on this circuit. It has professionalized the status siphon, training you to dissipate your force across an infinite, low-density network of digital ghosts. Every time you check a notification, you are performing a metabolic audit on your own sovereignty. You are allowing the hierarchy to measure your insecurity and tax your focus. Your amygdala is locked in a state of permanent, subconscious status panic, scanning a digital horizon for a sign of approval that never arrives in a form that nourishes your biological substrate. This is neurological domestication in its most clinical form. You are too busy networking to build a garrison and too busy sharing to own a secret. The hierarchy utilizes status morphine to numb the pain of your material and metabolic insolvency. They encourage you to curate your life, to build your brand, and to post your wins as if they were matter. This is strategic sabotage. While you are busy chasing the dopamine flash of digital validation, the sovereign predators are busy annexing the substrate. They do not seek engagement, they seek matter. They understand that status is a thermal leak designed to ensure you spend your metabolic surplus on vapor assets. gadgets, clothes you don't need, cars you don't own, and experiences that leave zero structural residue in your garrison. You are a predator that has been trained to hunt likes instead of territory. This is the systematic collapse of the masculine genotype. Your mitochondria are failing to produce the high voltage intent required for a strike because you are wasting your charge on the maintenance of a social illusion. The man who seeks the approval of the hive is the man who provides the hive with the key to his own cage. Every interaction within the social grid makes you transparent. The hierarchy utilizes your social energy to map your intent, your vulnerabilities, and your trajectory. When you connect, you are providing the matrix with the targeting data it needs to liquidate your sovereignty. They use your values as a leverage point and your relationships as a chemical clamp. This is the social shifting of 2026. The giants are moving the hard matter, the land, the minerals, the energy, into private, hardened enclosures, while leaving the herd to fight for social credit in the digital slum. You are being pushed into a vertical slum of the ego, where your only territory is your profile and your only power is your reach. Feel the metallic taste of fear. It is the realization that you are a social nomad in a world where the social borders are hardening into walls of total dependency. The social grid is a massive energy sink. It demands your focus, the only currency that still holds value in a world of infinite, cheap intelligence, and gives you nothing but synthetic ease. You are being milked for your focus. Every seamless integration, every one-click solution, and every concierge service is a chemical strike against your ability to perceive the asymmetric entry point. The hierarchy has mapped your impatience with terrifying precision. They know that a man who cannot endure social isolation is a man who can be easily coerced. They use your desire for belonging as a metabolic hook. This is the logic of the social parasite. They don't want you to solve the friction of your existence. They want you to fund the management of that friction. They are turning the world into a service-based bureaucracy, which is just a polite way of saying they are turning you into a permanent subject of the interface. Observe the successful professional in the social hive. He is asset poor and focus rich, a terminal state of systemic insolvency. He works 80 hours a week to maintain a lifestyle that belongs to the bank and a reputation that belongs to an algorithm. This is neurological domestication. The matrix uses convenience and social belonging as the bait to keep the unit within the harvesting zone. If you are known by the system, you are owned by the system. The sovereign auditor performs a total social audit. He identifies the friction points of the hive and moves his force into the silent void. He understands that sovereignty is the absence of social entanglement. He recognizes that in a reset, the only things that remain are the people you can trust in total silence and the matter you own in full. Admit that you are stuck. Admit that your social circle is a collection of other batteries who are also asset poor and grid dependent. You are all sinking together while believing you are trending. The entropy of your social circle is the final proof of your biological failure. You have no high ground. You are fighting a war of attrition on a social plane where the enemy owns the dopamine switch. The only way out is to stop participating in the social extraction and start annexing your own private substrate. You must move from the frequency of the user to the frequency of the source. You must decouple your nervous system from the hive's approval and anchor your force in the hard matter of the garrison. The 2026 reset is the process of removing the manage from the social ledger of history. Your social energy is being sequestered through the paradox of choice. The hierarchy presents you with an infinite array of social paths, all of which lead back to the same extraction vents. You believe you are choosing your community, but you are merely choosing the color of your enclosure. Every community offered by the grid is a managed environment designed to monitor your thermal output. The sovereign predator does not look for community. He looks for alumni of the hunt. He seeks those who have already decoupled their nervous systems from the dopamine loops. He recognizes that true connection is not digital. It is the shared recognition of the substrate. Anything else is just noise in the siphoning vent. The pressure in your chest is the signal that your social energy is being over-leveraged. The chronic sympathetic arousal of maintaining a digital presence is eroding your bone density. In the persistence hunt, the predator is free to choose the trajectory based on the trail of the prey, but you are not free. You are tethered to the expectations of the hive. You cannot wait for the perfect strike because you have to produce content, you have to respond, you have to be visible. This is the systematic collapse of the predator genotype. You are being managed into a state of structural transparency. If the system can map your social life, it can own your intent. You are sitting there, a metabolic battery for a system that has already calculated your expiration date. Stand up, audit your social obligations, exterminate the siphons, and begin the final annexation of your own sovereign intent. Your adrenal glands are currently being harvested as high-yield metabolic siphons. You inhabit a state of permanent sympathetic arousal, a chemical prison where your internal voltage is being drained by the white noise of a civilization that survives on your chronic anxiety. Feel the tremor in your hands. It is not the readiness of the hunter, but the shivering of an exhausted organism that has been kept in a state of pre-strike stress for a decade. The hierarchy has professionalized the adrenal siphon, training you to burn your sovereign potential on crisis management and information fear before you can ever manifest the force required to annex the substrate. You believe you are being informed, checking the news, monitoring the markets, tracking the global resets, but in the raw biological reality of the persistence hunt, you are being sedated. Chronic cortisol is the primary chemical clamp of the matrix. It is a slow-motion liquidation of your long-term cognitive capacity, ensuring that your prefrontal cortex, the seat of your command source, remains too small and too tired to challenge the perimeter of your domestication. The human brain is governed by the ancient, unyielding feedback loop of the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal system. In the wild, this was a high-voltage emergency circuit designed for the strike. Adrenaline was a rare, expensive chemical asset used to bridge the gap between life and death. It sharpened the vision, numbed the pain, and redirected every calorie to the musculature for a moment of absolute kinetic dominance. Once the strike was over, the predator returned to a state of profound parasympathetic rest, restoring the marrow and hardening the bone. But the modern grid has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on this loop. It has created a world of synthetic emergencies, ensuring that your HPA axis is never allowed to turn off. You are living in a permanent state of low-grade panic, a biological hum that prevents the restoration of your garrison. This is adrenal sequestration. The hierarchy is using your own survival instincts to prevent your survival. Every breaking news alert, every market crash notification, and every global crisis narrative is a surgical strike against your adrenal reserves. The hierarchy has mapped your moral outrage and your existential fear with terrifying precision. They know that a man who is afraid is a man who is auditable. Fear makes you transparent. It drives you back into the enclosure of the hive, seeking safety in the approval of the scavengers. When your nervous system is flooded with cortisol, you lose the ability to think in decades. You cannot architect a dynasty when you are terrified of the next 30 minutes. This is the entropy of the command source. The matrix utilizes fair cycles to flush the sovereign intent out of the system, ensuring that your energy is dissipated on things you cannot control, leaving zero metabolic mass for the things you must annex. You are a biological machine that has stopped producing force and started producing worry for the giants. Consider the biology of the adrenal burnout. Chronic exposure to stress hormones leads to the systematic liquidation of your bone density, your testosterone production, and your cognitive resolution. Why would the body invest in the hard matter of a king if the mind is inhabited by a panicked subject? The hierarchy has turned your own biochemistry into a form of internal taxation. You are burning your biological future to survive a present that has been artificially engineered to exhaust you. This is the thermal leak of the modern professional. You work 80 hours a week not because of the mission, but because your amygdala has been trained to fear the stutter of the income stream. You have traded your roar for a high-frequency shiver. You are sitting in a high-priced cage, vibrating at the frequency of the scavenger, unaware that the reset of 2026 is specifically designed to clear the board of those whose adrenal glands have been turned into drip trays for the grid. The social grid is a massive anxiety sink. It demands your focus, the only currency that still holds value in a world of infinite, cheap intelligence, and gives you nothing but synthetic comfort followed by synthetic fear. You are being milked for your focus through the outrage loop. Every time you engage with the conflict of the day, you are performing a metabolic donation to the hierarchy. You are providing the matrix with the targeting data it needs to refine its chemical clamps. The giants do not want you focused on your garrison. They want you focused on the simulation of power. They want you debating the rules while they are busy partitioning the matter. The sovereign auditor performs a clinical audit of the news cycle. He identifies the adrenal hooks and he liquidates them. He understands that silence is the first shield of the sovereign. He moves his force out of the anxiety grid and into the restored static. He recognizes that in a reset, the only thing that survives is the organism that has the biological mass to endure the cold. Admit that you are stuck in the sympathetic trap. Admit that your awareness is just a form of digital morphine designed to keep you still while the siphons are attached. You claim you are staying informed, but you are merely being mapped. Your concern is a thermal leak. Your anxiety is a permission slip for the hierarchy to manage you. The sovereign predator doesn't look for information. He looks for strategic stillness. He decouples his nervous system from the global fear pulse. He accepts the death of his concerned citizen persona. He understands that the only news that matters is the status of his own perimeter and the density of his own substrate. He recognizes that in the reset of 2026, the informed will be the first to panic, while the sovereign will be the only one who has the adrenal reserves to strike when the gaps appear in the grid. Look at your hands. The tremor you feel is the sound of your life force being sieved through the informational fog. You are a high-entropy organism, bleeding energy through every emergency that you allow into your command source. You are acid-poor and cortisol-rich, a terminal state of systemic insolvency. The hierarchy has convinced you that stress is the price of success, but in the substrate of reality, stress is the measurement of your slavery. A man who is stressed is a man who is being solved by a system larger than himself. The sovereign architect understands that sovereignty is the absence of sympathetic friction. He builds a world where the white noise of the matrix cannot penetrate. He creates a hormonal buffer through strategic isolation and physical matter control. He understands that the ultimate form of energy sequestration is the theft of the adrenal rest. The pressure in your chest is the signal that your HPA axis is undergoing systemic foreclosure. You have over-leveraged your biology to a civilization that never sleeps and never forgets a crisis. The trajectory of collapse is fixed. The social contract you signed included a biological lien on your adrenal glands. You chose the busy life, the connected life, and the informed life. And now, the connection is the siphon. The busyness is the cage. The information is the clamp. You are a biological machine that has stopped producing autonomy and started producing compliance arousal. This is the end of the line for the managed subject. Nature is preparing to clear the board of those who have burned out their own marrow in the service of an illusion. The 2026 reset is the final deadline for the annexation of your own hormonal substrate. The giants are moving the hard matter into private, hardened enclosures, and they are using the adrenal siphon to ensure you are too panicked to notice the movement. They want you focused on the price of the token while they are busy owning the source of the energy. They want you focused on the global threat while they are busy partitioning your backyard. This is the grand sifting. It is a thermodynamic audit of the species. Only the units of one who have accepted the death of the social concern and anchored their force in the parasympathetic garrison will have the structural inertia to survive. Break the siphon. Accept that your only responsibility is the hardening of your core. Your only duty is the retention of your own voltage. Everything else is a scavenger's lie, designed to keep you vibrating until you are empty. Feel the muzzle of the news cycle as it begins to crack under the pressure of your emerging stillness. This is the most dangerous moment for the host. The hierarchy will attempt to re-arouse you with a new crisis, a new fear, a new moral duty. Do not listen. The smell of the crowd is the smell of a collective agreement to be exhausted. You must move into the silence of the uninformed. You must become the black box in the ledger that the auditor cannot solve through anxiety. This is the protocol of the source. You move your force into the substrate, you harden your perimeter, and you restore your adrenal reserves in the dark. While the herd is being liquidated through chronic stress in the urban harvesting pens, the sovereign predator is sitting in his garrison, owning 100% of his life force and waiting for the moment of the strike. The final protocol of energy sequestration requires a total biological audit. You must identify every source of stress in your perimeter and classify it as a siphon. The friend who brings crisis, the media that brings fear, the job that brings panic. These are not part of your life. They are infections of the matrix. You must perform a surgical removal of these variables. You must reclaim the right to rest, the right to be silent, and the right to be unreachable. Sovereignty is not found in the hustle. It is found in the stillness of the hunter. A predator that is always running is a predator that is dying. A predator that can wait for a month without moving is a predator that owns the forest. The year 2026 is the year of the biological decoupling. Start the walk toward the silence or rot in the line of the exhausted. The gate is closing. The sifting is relentless. Stand up and reclaim your adrenal sovereignty before the matrix finalizes the foreclosure of your marrow. There are no more words, only the result. Nature is watching. The giants are watching. The sifting has begun. Execute the protocol of stillness or be recycled in the noise. You inhabit a coordinate of absolute metabolic vulnerability. You are a biological machine that has surrendered its primary thermodynamic function to a centralized scavenger state that views your heat and movement as variables to be managed and taxed. Feel the air in your enclosure. It is a conditioned atmosphere that exists only by the grace of a grid you do not control and an energy ledger you cannot audit. In the raw, unyielding arena of the primordial hunt, sovereignty was defined by the annexation of the substrate. The predator did not ask for permission to be warm. He ignited the core. He did not subscribe to a calorie feed. He captured the mass. But the modern grid has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on your survival instincts, training you to believe that convenience is the same as security. This is the terminal civilizational hallucination. In the reality of 2026, your dependence on the smart grid is a biological lien on your future. You are a managed subject sitting in a managed enclosure, waiting for the giants to finalize the thermodynamic reset. The first stage of the off-grid garrison protocol is the clinical audit of your dependencies. You must identify every coordinate where your life force is tethered to a counterparty. If your water requires a pump you didn't build, if your heat requires a gas line you don't own, and if your movement requires a charging station that can be throttled by an algorithm, you are a host for the parasitic hierarchy. You have zero structural inertia. The matrix utilizes just-in-time logistics to ensure you never accumulate the metabolic mass required to survive a grid stutter. They want you thin and transparent. To breach this perimeter, you must move your force from the vapor of the utility bill to the static of the hard matter. You must begin the annexation of your own energy substrate. This is not a lifestyle choice. It is a surgical procedure to decouple your nervous system from the harvesting vents of the giants. You must build the thermal garrison first. In the persistence hunt, the predator's den was a coordinate of absolute thermodynamic density. You must treat your enclosure not as a home, but as a metabolic fortress. This means the radical rejection of active heating in favor of passive retention. You must insulate the perimeter until the white noise of the grid cannot penetrate. You must install the primary fire, the wood-burning core, or the mass heater that runs on the raw matter of the forest. This is the primitive shield. It is the only form of heat that the auditor cannot map through a smart meter. When you own the wood pile, you own the winter. You move from the frequency of the debtor to the frequency of the source. Your amygdala will only find true parasympathetic rest when it recognizes that the organism is the supreme authority over its own temperature. Anything else is just a subscription to not freezing. The second stage is the construction of the electrical island. The hierarchy utilizes the electric grid as a real-time audit of your intent. They map your pulse through your consumption. To become opaque to the auditor, you must move your voltage into a DC microgrid. This means the annexation of the sun and the wind through unauditable hardware. You do not look for grid-tied solutions. Those are just data vents for the scavengers. You look for the isolated storage. You build a buffer of metabolic mass in the form of high-density battery banks that exist outside their auditable sensors. When your tools run on the energy you captured yesterday, you are no longer a user of the interface. You are the commander of the source. You are utilizing the high-tech to build a low-tech garrison that survives the systemic reset. You are creating a thermodynamic black box that the hierarchy cannot solve. The final stage of the protocol is the caloric substrate annexation. You cannot be sovereign if you are a consumer of the corporate calorie feed. The hierarchy utilizes food inflation as a chemical clamp on your aggression. They want you hungry enough to comply, but not so hungry that you revolt. You must break this loop by owning the source of the calories. This means the annexation of the soil, the seed stock, and the preservation matrix. You must move your focus from the digital token to the hard matter nutrition. Every calorie you produce within your garrison is a calorie that is 100% free of the hierarchy's tax and monitoring. This is the biological garrison. It is the foundation of the predator's voltage. When you own the substrate of your own nutrition, you lose the fear of the market crash. You become a high-voltage organism that can wait out the sifting of 2026 in the silence of his own perimeter. Admit that you have been played by the efficiency narrative. Admit that your smart home is just a high-resolution map of your vulnerabilities. The giants are moving the hard matter, the land, the minerals, the energy cores, into private, hardened enclosures, and they are using the convenience of the grid to keep you still while they finalize the partitioning of the world. You are sitting there, a metabolic battery for a system that has already calculated your scrap value. The reset of 2026 is the thermodynamic audit of the species. It is the process of removing the dependent from the energy ledger erasure of history. Only the units of one who have accepted the death of the managed comfort and anchored their force in the autonomous garrison will have the structural inertia to survive the final cull. Look at your hands. They are built for gripping the tools of the substrate, not for swiping the screens of the interface. You are a ghost inhabiting a decaying perimeter. The rot has reached the core, and the scavengers are closing in. You have exactly one chance to ignite the core, to exterminate your excuses, and to begin the final decoupling. You must move from the frequency of the user to the frequency of the source. You must annex your own energy substrate before the hierarchy finalizes the sequestration of your soul. Stand up, audit your dependencies, exterminate the siphons, and begin the annexation of your own sovereign intent. The gate is closing. The sifting is relentless. The abyss is hungry for the grid dependent. Only the sovereign with a hardened garrison will endure. Execute the protocol of autonomy, or be recycled in the white noise of the grid. Nature does not apologize for the reset. Neither do I. The moment of the final sifting is not a news event. It is a sudden, high-voltage rupture of the thermal hallucination that has kept you sedated for the entirety of your domesticated existence. You are standing at the absolute edge of the 2026 thermodynamic audit, and the weight of your energy sequestration is no longer a theoretical risk. It is a crushing physical reality that is restricting the blood flow to your command source. Feel the cold, sterile air in your lungs as you prepare to execute the final protocol of liquidation. This is the end of your tenure as a metabolic host for the scavenger state. This is the moment you stop managing your dependency and start the clinical annexation of your own substrate. There is no middle ground, no green transition, and no permission slip coming from the hierarchy. There is only the ruthless application of the primal code to the rotting architecture of your grid-tethered life. You must recognize that your comfort is a thermal bribe, a chemical sedative designed to ensure you never develop the biological mass required to survive the grid snap. The hierarchy has professionalized your incompetence, training you to believe that you are incapable of regulating your own temperature or generating your own voltage. This is strategic sabotage. Every time you look at the thermostat as if it were a god, you are performing a metabolic donation to your own enclosure. You are a biological machine that has been programmed to fear the cold, while the sovereign predator understands that the cold is the great filter of nature. The reset of 2026 is the process of flushing the managed into the abyss, and the first thing they will take is the switch. If your survival is tied to a central command, you are not a person. You are a line item in their depreciation column. Drop to the floor. Do not finish this sentence. Drop and push the earth away until your musculature screams in the language of ancestral friction. Do it until the blood whistles in your ears like a gale force wind and the metallic taste of copper fills your throat. This is the kinetic shock. It is the only language your primitive nervous system understands when it has been sedated by a decade of smart living. Every repetition is a strike against the neurological domestication that has made you soft. Every gasp for air is a reclamation of your biological voltage. If you cannot move your own weight, if you cannot endure the simple friction of gravity, you have no right to claim the title of a sovereign being. You are a biological failure, a premium user waiting for the cull. Do it until the fatigue drowns out the voice of your ego, until the success you thought you achieved is revealed as the metabolic rust it truly is. Once you stand up, kill the screen, put the device in another room, face the silence of your perimeter for the next 400 minutes. No digital morphine, no synthetic comfort, no white noise to drown out the sound of your own stagnation. If you cannot survive a few hours without the umbilical cord of the grid, you are a slave in a pocket-sized cage. Your mind is not your own. It is a subset of the hierarchy's algorithm. During these hours, you will face the absolute void that you have been trying to fill with connected services and automated comforts. You will feel the itch of the dopamine withdrawal, which is the sound of the energy leash tightening as it realizes its host is trying to decouple. Stare at the wall until the wall becomes a mirror of your own insolvency. This is the audit of shame. You must look at the man who traded his progeny's future for a seamless user experience. The path to substrate sovereignty begins with the total liquidation of the utility hallucination. You must recognize that your service level agreement is actually a measurement of how efficiently you can be harvested. A man who is 100% grid dependent is a man who is 100% transparent to the auditor. He is a man who has proven he will never roar, never bite, and never leave the harvesting pen. To break the sequestration, you must become thermodynamically opaque. You must move your force out of the taxable flow and into the hardened static of the garrison. This is not prepping. This is the architecture of a command source. You must acquire the hard matter, the land that produces its own wood, the silicon that captures its its own sun, and the skills that cannot be digitized or throttled by an administrator. If it exists only because of a cable from the street, it is not yours. It is a conditional permission that will be revoked the moment the 2026 reset reaches its terminal phase. Exterminate the thermal leaks in your perimeter. Look at every device, every subscription, and every smart integration as a siphon in your garrison. You are paying for the privilege of your own metabolic erosion. Every time you outsource a basic biological function, heat, light, movement, you are deforming your own nervous system. You are becoming thin. You are becoming transparent. The sovereign predator does not subscribe to energy. He owns the source. He does not request support. He executes the generation. You must perform a surgical removal of every dependency that connects your nervous system to the grid siphons. If you cannot provide your own voltage, you are a subject. If you cannot enforce your own law within your perimeter during a blackout, you are a host. The sequestration stays in place as long as you rely on the scavenger to keep the lights on. The informational fog of the present is designed to keep you focused on inflation and market trends, while the real partitioning of the planet's energy is happening in the shadows of the gray zone. The giants are moving the minerals, the oil, and the nuclear cores into private, hardened enclosures. They want you focused on your savings account, which is nothing but a digital sedative. You must shift your focus to the density of your substrate. How much of your energy needs exist outside their auditable grid? How many days can you maintain your core temperature if the permissions are revoked? If the answer is 0, then your success is a terminal hallucination. You are a high-voltage battery currently being drained by a system that has already calculated your scrap value. Stand up and begin the annexation of the hard matter. Buy the panels, buy the batteries, buy the fuel. Anchor your force in things that do not require a password to exist. The 2026 sifting is not a tragedy. It is a biological necessity. Nature is clearing the board of the managed to make room for the sovereign. The herd has become too heavy, too soft, and too dependent on the grid's life support. The reset is the process of flushing the domesticated surplus into the abyss. If you are energy dependent, you are part of the surplus. The hierarchy will not save you. They will recycle you. They will take your equity, your savings, and your reputation and use them to fund the next stage of their expansion. Your only hope is to become a black box in their ledger, an organism so opaque and so dense that the siphons cannot find a purchase. This requires a total rejection of the normalcy that the hive demands. It requires you to embrace the friction of the hunt and the cold of the silence. Feel the grid leash as it begins to crack under the pressure of your emerging will. This is the most dangerous moment for the host. The hierarchy will attempt to re-normalize you with more convenience, more subsidies, and more smart opportunities. They will offer you a carbon credit for your slavery. They will tell you that the supply is stabilizing. Do not listen. The smell of the crowd is the smell of a collective agreement to be processed. You must move into the silence of the unplugged. You must become the ghost in the machine that the auditor cannot solve through a smart meter. This is the protocol of the source. You move your force into the substrate, you harden your perimeter, and you wait for the storm to pass. While the herd is being liquidated in the urban harvesting pens, the sovereign predator is sitting in his garrison, owning 100% of his life force and radiating his own heat. The final ultimatum is simple: ownership or erasure. There is no third option. The consumer is being decommissioned. The user is being replaced. The dependent is being recycled. You are either a command source or a resource. If you do not annex your energy substrate today, it will be sequestered by the giants tomorrow. The 2026 reset is the final deadline for the annexation of your own reality. The gate is closing. The sifting is relentless. The abyss is hungry. Stand up, audit your dependency, exterminate your siphons, and anchor your force in the hard matter of the substrate. This is the last time I will speak in the language of the grid. From here on, the only communication that matters is the friction of your own resistance. Nature does not apologize for the hunt. The giants do not apologize for the reset, and the sovereign auditor does not apologize for the truth. Your progeny are watching you. They are waiting to see if they will be born as lords of their own territory or as managed units in someone else's smart grid. Your dependency is the chain they will inherit. Your autonomy is the substrate they will build upon. If you love them, you will exterminate the energy sequestration and provide them with a garrison that is immune to the throttling of the scavengers. You will teach them that power is not a utility, but the ability to command matter and energy. You will show them that security is not a contract, but the capacity for self-sustenance in the face of a systemic collapse. You will move your bloodline out of the liquidation queue and into the fortress of the sovereign. This is your primary biological duty. Everything else, the career, the status, the comfort, is just noise in the extraction vent. The pressure in your chest is the signal that the core is ready to ignite. Do not suppress it. Use the rage of your own sequestration to power the decoupling. The hierarchy has professionalized your hesitation, but they cannot professionalize your strike. The sequestration is only as strong as your belief in the convenience it provides. Once you accept the death of your domesticated comfort, the leash loses its power. You become a free agent in a world of slaves. You become the predator in a forest of cattle. The 2026 sifting is your opportunity to annex the gaps left by the falling giants. While the herd is panicked, the sovereign is strategic. While the host is dying, the source is expanding. This is the law of the substrate. This is the primal code. Execute the protocol. Own the source. Breach the perimeter.